talented and at times super over. How does that not work? Because you don't explain things well enough, because the motivations don't make sense. Bobby's always talking about get back to championship. He was, he had a couple of shots at it, but not really. And whether he got hurt or not, that's part of it too. He never went anywhere. Also, I never liked the idea of Bobby Lashley being the leader of a group and the mouthpiece. It's not his strongest point. You could have put not anybody, but you could have put somebody in that group. I'll tell you what. I had an idea, and we'll throw this up as a poll. Did WWE break up the Hurt Business too soon? That's up as a poll right now. You can vote on YouTube. You can vote at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. If you're watching elsewhere, go vote there. I think they did. And I'll tell you why. That was a heel group. It should have been a heel group. That was where did they have the unfortunate timing of being something during the Thunderdome era? Probably. Would that group have gotten over as baby faces or heels? Would they have gotten the proper heat if there were fans? I happen to think so. I will go back to the only redeeming thing of Retribution is when they were taking over Raw and they had people that you knew and random jobbers or extras or whatever that were part of the group. At one point, the Hurt Business had enough. And they walk out on the top of that stage. I'll give you I'm looking at it now. It was about 3 years ago. And they walk out on the Thunderdome stage. And they pipe in the noise. They jackets off. And Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre think about that. Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre decimated in the ring. They take off the watches. They take off the jacket. And they march down there like 4 bad motherfuckers. And they looked at about 15 people in the ring, and they were ready to go, and I believed every bit that they could whoop their asses. And they started to do that. And they did random tags and stuff, and it didn't go anywhere. But that group on that night looked as big, as menacing, as believable as it gets, with Bobby Lashley in the way, with Shelton, with Cedric, with MVP. They always looked like that. They always had that look. We're dead serious. But when they did all that and they took off and it was time. Shit was on. And I believe if that had happened with somebody, with a crowd, with a better group on, you think that group right now, if built up correctly, couldn't have stood up to the Bloodline? The original one, not the current one, and maybe that too. If that group was built correctly, totally believable. Maybe add one more. MVP's at the point where I'd rather him be just a mouthpiece than a wrestler, and he didn't do much wrestling in the last couple of years anyway. But if you had added one more, let's say it was Ricochet, because there was the talk of that, and they tried to get him in the group. Ricochet, Cedric, Bobby, Shelton Benjamin. Yeah, I believe. And then they just kind of broke him up, and it was like, oh, Bobby's got to be on it. That's a big Vince thing. If you turn somebody babyface, well, they got to be on their own. Why? Total fumble. That's a Bobby fumble. The stuff of the last year was fumble with Bobby. Everything with the Profits was fumble. It wasn't done correctly. And, to DNC question, I see your next super chat. Certainly appreciate that. We'll get it up there in a second. Hang on with that, Dom. Maybe he just looked and said, listen, I appreciate it. If you offered me this, I'm not, or whatever. He looked at it and said, I'm not going to do this. I'm good. He has enough stuff to point to and say, you know what? I'm 48. I know I have some good years left. Maybe not a lot of good years. I'm going to take those elsewhere. Like, what if a War Games match had happened? You're telling me that could... Hell, throw Omos in the group. I don't know. The Hurt Business could have been a group of badasses that were believable to take on the Bloodline. And I also bring that up. Roman Bobby happened 2 times ever. 2 singles matches. Bobby beat Roman in Extreme Rules 2018. A week later, Roman beat Bobby to be the number 1 contender for the Universal title. That's it. The entire... Now, that's the entire... Someone just attacks me for my figures. That's the Raw match, or Extreme Rules, or whatever. The entire Roman reign as champion, as the guy. Bobby worked 2 live events and 1 TV match. And it was the same combination. It was Big E as WWE champion. It was Roman as Universal champion. And it was Bobby right off the loss to E on the cash-in. Also, that didn't do any favors for Bobby either. 90% of you, by the way, said that the Hurt Business was broken up too soon. And I agree. They left a lot of money on the table. They left a lot of feuds on the table. And I understand, you can go, well, listen, Bobby at his age shouldn't have been the one to beat Roman. I'm not saying about beating Roman, but you know what? From things that were missed during that whole run with the Bloodline, I think an AJ Styles Roman match was missed, a one-on-one. I think a Bobby Lashley Roman match was missed. And they could have worked that off of War Games or what. And I get it. The big War Games match they had, the Bloodline one, excellent. Big night for Sammy, all that. It was done well. I was in the building for that. But it seemed like even before that, Hurt Business Bloodline should have happened. Hey, this is Matt Camp. Thanks for checking out one of our recent clips from the Wrestling Mat. Why is someone so close to The Rock kind of throwing Cody under the bus?
Yeah, a lot of people won't engage with Jim Cornette. I did, just because I have a mark for Jim Cornette. And
Please subscribe right now. Hit the like and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. And I think you should listen to your TV partners. Let me tell you about WWE and a little insight. More subscribers means more content. And make sure you follow us on social media at WrestlingMat23 on both Twitter and Instagram.